Welcome to the Blackwell Archives. I used to take the same route home from work every night, Route 27, departing at 22:10 from Brookline Station. It was a quiet commute, the kind where the world felt half asleep and even the city noises softened. That routine held for years until the night I first saw him sitting at the bus stop bench. He wasn't doing anything unusual, just sitting, hands folded, staring at the pavement at first. I barely noticed him, except for one odd detail. He never looked up when the bus approached. Everyone looks up. Even people pretending not to wait for it still glance over. But he didn't. He stayed completely motionless, as though unaware of the rushing headlights. I got on the bus. The doors hissed shut behind me, and when I looked back, he still hadn't moved. The next night he was there again. Same posture, same stillness, same clothing, I think. A dark coat, trousers that looked too thin for November, and shoes coated in something dust-like. His head was angled forward just slightly, as though he were listening to something in the ground. The lights from the station flickered behind him, and the shadows under the bench seemed darker than usual. I stepped onto the bus quickly this time, unwilling to linger. I didn't like the way he made the air feel like the temperature dropped 2 or 3 degrees whenever I passed. By the fourth night, the déjà vu sensation had grown into something else. Dread, the subtle kind that starts in your stomach and radiates outward. I considered taking the earlier bus or the later one, but work hours kept me locked to that schedule. So at 22:08, I stood again at the stop, holding my breath when I saw him sitting there. That night, though, something was different. His head was slightly raised. Not enough to see his face, just enough to notice that he was following my steps with the tiniest movement, as if tracking sound rather than sight. I pretended to be on my phone. It felt safer that way, like if I stayed distracted, I wouldn't fall into whatever strange gravity he carried around him. When the bus arrived, I got on as quickly as possible. But this time, I felt something as I stepped past him. A pressure. Not a touch, not air displacement, not anything I could explain. It was like an awareness pressing against my skin. Like he recognized me. After that night, I tried everything to justify what I was feeling. Maybe he lived nearby. Maybe he was homeless. Maybe he had a sleep disorder and didn't respond normally to noise. Every explanation deflated quickly, collapsing under the same unavoidable fact. No one else ever acknowledged him, not once. People walked past him. A couple sat on the far end of the bench one evening, and didn't even glance his way. The bus drivers never looked at him. He might as well have been invisible. That night, when I approached the stop, he wasn't sitting, he was standing, his back to me, looking at the street, or maybe at nothing. The sight stopped me in my tracks. He was taller than I expected, unnaturally tall, like his proportions didn't fully add up. The coat hung off him loosely, as though the body beneath it didn't quite conform to human dimensions. And as I got closer, the air grew heavy, but there were no clouds, no weather at all, just him. When I glanced back from my seat, he was still standing, but now his head was tilted slightly upward, as though he was smelling the air. That was the night I knew I needed answers. I asked my coworkers if they'd ever noticed a strange man at the station. No one had. I asked the bus driver if anyone ever sat at that stop around 10 at night. He just said the route was usually quiet. I called the city's non-emergency line. They had no reports. That made it worse. But I saw him. I walked past him. I felt the air shift around him. Yet on playback, nothing appeared. On the 12th night, it was closer than ever. I could hear the faintest breath, slow, steady, mechanical almost. It wasn't the sound of lungs. It was the sound of something mimicking the idea of breathing. A practiced rhythm, not a natural one. I froze, waiting for the bus, pretending to scroll my phone, though my hand shook so hard the screen blurred. And then, for the first time, he moved, or at least, I think he did. His hand twitched, just a single, deliberate twitch. Something about that movement made my vision swim. When the bus arrived, I nearly ran onto it, but I had the overwhelming sense that he had watched me board. He knew I was afraid. I barely slept that night. The idea wasn't completely irrational. The next evening, when I returned from work earlier in the day, I checked my street, my yard, my windows. Nothing looked disturbed, but the air had that same dense, electric charge I'd come to associate with him. I considered reporting it again, but what report could I give? A man who may not be visible, a presence only I seemed to notice. I'd be laughed at, or worse, dismissed as unstable. So instead, I researched, dug through old local forums, missing persons boards, archived news clippings. I didn't expect to find anything, and mostly I didn't, except one thread. Just a single paragraph describing a man with a lowered head, sitting silently at the 20 to 10 stop. The poster claimed he followed them home, that they heard breathing outside their window, that they eventually moved to another city. Then the thread abruptly ended. The timestamp of their last login was the same week the thread was created. That scared me more than anything. The next night, I chose not to take Route 27. I went to a cafe near my office and stayed until closing, then requested a rideshare. I felt foolish, but safer. On the ride home, I kept glancing out the window, checking the sidewalks, the shadows, the passing streetlights. Nothing unusual. But when we pulled up to my house, the car's interior lights flickered just once. I looked out the window and saw him standing across the street, not at the bus stop, not in the shadows, directly across from my home, illuminated by the street lamp. His head was raised just enough that I could see the lower half of his face. His jaw didn't move with the mechanical breathing I heard. His mouth stayed closed, tight, like the shape was wrong. I didn't get out of the car. I asked the driver to circle the block. He agreed. When we returned 30 seconds later, the sidewalk was empty. I spent that night sitting in my living room with all the lights on, back pressed against the wall, phone in hand. I listened for the breathing. I waited for something to tap the window. Nothing happened, but sleep never came. Days passed, weeks even. I changed my routine, completely different bus routes, different commute times, occasional ride shares. I never saw him again at the station. The dread faded but never disappeared. The house felt lighter though, the air less charged. I began sleeping again, sometimes even peacefully. Then, 2 nights ago, I received a message on my phone. It wasn't from a number I recognized. It had no sender ID, no metadata, just a single image attached. A photograph of my street, taken from the perspective of the curb. The angle was familiar, too familiar. And in the bottom corner of the photo, partially cropped, was the hem of a long dark coat. The message had no text, no signature, no follow-up, just that single image. I haven't left my house since. I've covered the mirrors. I sleep in short, broken intervals. I keep checking the window, even though I'm afraid of what I'll see. The electric pressure in the air is back, stronger than ever, and I know with a certainty I can't explain that he's waiting for me to return to the stop, for the routine to resume. If this record is found, don't go to Brookline Station at night. Dan T. Take Route 27. And if you ever see someone sitting perfectly still at a bus stop, head lowered, breathing in that unnatural rhythm, don't walk past him. Don't even look.